to North Bay Hindu Center and Good Living Practices with Dr. Ram Rao. Wishing you all a very, very happy new year. May 2021 prove to be a good year for all of us. And we will start as usual with a prayer. Om, Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May there be well-being in all. May there be peace in all. May there be fulfillment in all. May there be auspiciousness in all. Om, peace, peace, peace. So without much further ado, it is my honor and privilege to welcome my dear friend, Dr. Ram Rao. For those of you who have joined new, we welcome you to the group. And I know some of you have been regular members for the last 3 sessions, but welcome to the group. And I would like to introduce Dr. Rao. Dr. Ram Rao holds a PhD in neuroscience and was a research associate professor of neuroscience at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, Novato, California. His research focused on age-associated neurodegenerative diseases with special emphasis on Alzheimer's disease. Ram has over 20 years of research and teaching experience in neuroscience and has published more than 50 peer-reviewed papers in scientific journals, including chapters in several textbooks. Ram is an NAMA board certified Ayurveda practitioner, a registered yoga teacher from Yoga Alliance, and a member of the National Ayurvedic Medical Accreditation Council, NAMAC. He teaches Ayurveda and yoga at the California College of Ayurveda. Ram has published several articles in the major yoga and Ayurveda magazines and has been a featured speaker at national and international meetings and symposia on yoga and Ayurveda. He is also the publisher and author of the book Good Living Practices. I recommend that all of you get a copy of this and benefit from it as I have. Good Living Practices, the best from Ayurveda, yoga, and modern science for achieving optimal health and happiness and longevity. So based on this book, it was how this these sessions were born. And we thought it would be a nice idea for us to have these kind of sessions where you can interact one-on-one with Ram and get his, straight from him, all the good tips and everything for our lives to adopt in our lives. And so without much further ado, we will get started on it. Ram, if you can just let us know what we are going to cover today and take it. And just to everyone, what I will do as a moderator is after Ram completes, I will be asking him some of the common questions that we have received and then open it up to the platform so that you all can either ask your questions or type it in the chat window and I will ask them for you so that Ram, you have a chance to interact actually with Ram. So without much further ado, here it is, Dr. Ram Rao.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for that long and wonderful introduction. I don't think I deserve all that praises, but thanks anyway. And everybody that's here on the platform, welcome, good morning. Thanks for spending your beautiful Sunday morning here with me today to hear more about good living practices. And so as Radhika mentioned, we started off these sessions mainly to make people aware about what exactly constitutes good living practices And if you're practicing any of those tips that I mentioned in the book, and if you have any difficulty, or if you have faced some challenges, then here is a good platform where you can actually interact with me, and I can provide additional tips on those things. So if I have to recapitulate what we looked the past 3 sessions, so this is the fourth one, GLP, that's Good Living Practices 1 to 3. We spoke about the importance of conscious and mindful eating. We talked about how cooking in itself is a meditative act. We talked about eating as a meditative act. And then I discussed about the importance of chewing, because chewing allows you to focus and provide attention on the food that we're eating. We spoke about the benefits of having a big meal at noon. And then I also spoke about the benefits of maintaining a 12-hour fast between your last meal of the day, which is your dinner, and the meal the following day, which is your breakfast. I also talked about the importance of keeping a 3-hour gap between meals. And I also spoke about the importance of keeping a 3-hour gap between your dinner and sleep time. In addition, we spoke about the importance of physical exercises, and I mentioned about the sitting standing ratio. And I also talked about how you can boost your immunity by coupling your prolonged gentle fast with a physical exercise the following morning before you break your fast, right? Now, when we talk about immunity, especially now in the COVID situation, everywhere you go around, people will talk about immunity. And when the minute you hear immunity, it's generally thought of as something physical. But did you know that immunity actually involves all 3 aspects of individuality? That is the body, the mind, and the emotions. So when we talk about immunity, we are referring to the physical immunity, the mental immunity, and the emotional immunity as well. Okay. So when we talk about physical exercise, we'll refer to things like gym, going to the gym, sports, swimming, tennis, gardening, walking, and all these aspects, right? So then the question is, what is mental immunity and how do we build that? Because that's the topic of conversation today. We're talking about mental immunity or mental exercise, okay, which is going to be today's topic. So let me start sharing the slides here. And so I hope you can see this. So this was our uh, recapitulated slide. And today we will talk about mental immunity. Now notice the minute we talk about mental immunity, the mind, it's so subtle, right? It's not so easily comprehensible. But to make it very comprehensible, what I did was in my book, and today for today's topic as well, when we refer to the mind, we will talk about it in terms of the brain, because that's how we function. All right. So everything about the mind is in terms of the brain structure and function. So when we talk about mental exercise, we are actually referring to brain fitness, brain exercises, mental exercise, everything to mean the same. Okay. And these exercises, the brain exercise that you do, it helps you to become more alert. It helps you to become more sensible. It helps you to become more rational. And it stimulates new neuronal connections. And we'll talk about that in detail. Um, so good mental practices or good brain exercises are all about reinforcing the structural and functional aspects of the brain. And this can be achieved through a set of exercises. Very similar to the muscle. If you do not use your muscle or if you do not use any part of the body, it tends to become atrophic or rustic, right? You cannot move it when you do some kind of an exercise, or if you have a fall, then you'll notice that it's more painful or more sort of takes a longer time to repair itself. In the same way, the brain as well, if you do not use it, then you tend to cause damage or lose the neuronal connections very easily. Whereas the more you use it, the better it performs and the better it becomes resilient. So what research studies have shown is that humans, all of us, we actually build and rebuild our brain cells throughout the lives. Even though we are born with a defined number, what happens is every time we engage ourselves in a learning environment, we tend to build and remodel our neuronal network connectivity. Okay, and this neuronal connectivity that happens, the term we use in neuroscience is neuroplasticity. I don't know if you have heard of it, but this is a term that we use, neuroplasticity. All it means is the brain is plastic in the sense it is malleable. It can change. You can change it. Okay, it's easily reformed. It refers to the capacity of the brain to mold itself and rewire itself through constant learning and stimulating. And as we age, it's very important that we keep our brain very sharp, okay, and to prevent memory decline and cognitive losses. And because of the mind-body nexus, I kept emphasizing that in the last 3 sessions, it's not surprising that all those people who possess a very high level of mental agility, they also tend to be physically very healthy, and they tend to live a high quality, harmonious life. If somebody can mute themselves, that'll be appreciated. So when we talk about neuroplasticity, the way I like to think about that is when you're walking in the forest, if somebody can mute themselves. Uh, so when you're walking in the forest, imagine the trail that you take, all right? So if you have taken the trail, a walk in the woods, notice that the frequent usage of the trail, it gets broader and more wider. And over time, this trail appears to become very obvious, well established. In the same way, our brain is constantly changing. We call it sculpting or rewiring itself. You see in the cartoon here. And this rewiring or sculpting happens in response to new experiences and new learning. What happens is, just like a tree that puts out its branches, every time you engage in some kind of a neuronal, in some kind of a challenging activity, the neurons tend to sprout itself. And this sprouting of neurons is very important, because what happens is, the thicker the forest of neuronal connections, the more stronger and the more resilient the brain is, and the greater is the mental immunity. So how do we improve the neuronal connections? How do we improve the branches? Well, the way to do that is to engage in solving complex equations, puzzles, reading, learning, exposing ourselves to new experiences, memorizing passages, memorizing texts, or recalling correctly whatever information we have taken in the past. Now, notice what happens is, as we grow older, we tend to complain about our inability to learn new things. Not only to learn new things, but it's also difficult to retrieve information. And it's also an experience for us. We get challenged by the latest technological aid. Okay. We also perform very poorly on complex tasks of attention and learning and memory. That's because the functions attributed to all these information gathering, recall, and then laying down the information, these are all areas of the brain called the cortex and hippocampus that's actually involved. They are involved in memory acquisition, memory recall, cognitive behavior, personality, social behavior. All these are functions of these areas, and they get compromised if you don't use them well. Okay, and research studies have shown that mental exercises or brain exercises can actually delay the onset of neurodegenerative diseases and other stress-associated brain conditions. So the question is, in physical exercise, we do have, you can think about, strength training exercises or resistance exercises, swimming, and so on, right? Breathing exercises, all these are physical aspects. So the question is, do we have similar kind of exercises in the brain as well? Yes, we do. And there are many aspects of brain exercises. And for today's discussion, and as we go forward, I would like to put forward 4 different types of exercises that is very important that all of us can cultivate. Okay, and these 4 different exercises fall under the broad category of memory, attention, visual spatial, and flexibility. Okay, so what exactly is memory exercises? During intense learning, what happens is the neurons or the brain cells, they start sprouting, or they put up connections, and these connections communicate with other neurons as well. So when this happens, memories gets consolidated when these connections get strengthened. Okay, so the question is, what do we do to enhance or strengthen our memories? When your memories are strengthened, you release certain brain chemicals. Okay, and these are required for memory storage, for memory acquisition, and for memory recall. So some of the exercises that involve memory, the memory aspect, is taking up something new to read, learning by rote, reasoning, mental calculation. Instead of using your calculator, trying to mentally calculate. So if I say, what is 12 times 12? Instead of using a calculator, if you can say 144, you know, or if you can start roting up those tables or those calculations, or memorizing the lyrics of a new song, or memorizing the street signs in your neighborhood. Okay, how many of us actually know the street signs in and around our neighborhood? Okay, learning a new language, or completing a crossword puzzle or a math puzzle. All these are nothing but exercises that involve the memory aspect, and they strengthen the brain. Okay. Now, the second part of the exercise is attention. Attention, memory go hand in hand. Okay. Without attention, you cannot memorize something. At the same time, to memorize something, you need to pay attention. Okay. So it is necessary to consolidate memories, maintain concentration, focus on a given task, and complete all the tasks in a timely manner. Okay. And for that, you require proper attention. Our power of choice can affect our attention. Think about that. So when we pay little attention, things will be forgotten very easily. Okay. So you have to have focus, you have to have concentration, and you have to use your power of choice in order to improve attention. And one way to improve attention is by simply challenging your daily routines and habits. So what happens is this forces your brain to remain active. In addition, it allows the sprouting of the neuronal branches. What are some of the exercises that you can think about when it comes to attention? Think about the route that you take from your home to your workspace, to your workplace. Okay, not now in the COVID situation, but until now that you were driving. Okay, when you're driving to work, instead of using the same route, which by now is doesn't challenge the brain, try to take a new route. Okay, and try to minimize the use of your GPS. GPS is a boon, especially if you're going in a strange country or a strange land, but it's also a bane because it doesn't allow us to use our attention faculty. So with the minimal use of your GPS, can you travel from one place to another place by using other routes that you're not familiar with? That requires attention, and that challenges the brain, and that allows sprouting of neuronal branches. Okay. At the same time, let's say, in the COVID situation, all of us are indoors. Let's say you have a habit of taking a walk in your neighborhood. Okay. If you're walking in the neighborhood, try to see the number of alleys or roads or streets. Look at the names. Try to memorize the names. And then once you have memorized it, see if you can, to memorize it, you need to pay attention to that as well. So pay attention to those road signs, pay attention to street signs. Okay. And then try to see how you can memorize that. And then try to recall them after 1 hour, or try to recall them after 6 hours. Okay. And if the longer you can pay attention to that, the longer you can hold those memories, the greater is the brain strength, the greater is the immunity. The third aspect of mental exercise is visual spatial. Okay. And our environment around us is surrounded by so many different objects that have different shapes, different size, different dimensions, different colors. And yet, how many of us have actually been aware of all this? Okay, when we step out. Okay, so visual spatial actually involves being aware of seeing, organizing, remembering, and differentiating all these objects of attention. It's about recognizing symbols. It's about recognizing images, paying attention to words, and then trying to understand the difference between each other. So it involves discriminating between objects of different size, shape, and colors. So the exercises that you can think about when it comes to visual spatial is the next time you are in the airport, or the next time you are in the BART station, or say you're in the dental office, okay? Try to see objects around you, objects of different shape, different sizes, different dimensions, different colors. Okay. And as you're waiting for the dentist, look around, think about all those objects, try to memorize their shape, size, dimension, and colors. And then when you are being seated and when you're being examined by the dentist, try to recall those objects, their shape, size, and colors. And then when you step out of the dental office and you reach home, try to see if you can recall those again, the same shape, the size, the colors, and all that. And these kind of exercises you can do not just in the dental office, you can do it in the clinic, you can do it in your office, you can do it when you're stepping out. Let's say you encounter a park. How many different objects can you recognize in the park of different shapes, sizes, and colors? Try to memorize that. Pay attention to that, try to memorize them, and then see if you can recall them later. Okay. And then the fourth and the final aspect of brain exercise is what I call flexibility. Flexibility is the ability to transition between multiple concepts simultaneously, as well as react and respond to goals, new situations, and new environmental stimuli. So the faster a person can switch from a concept, goal, or a stimulus to another goal or a stimulus, the greater is the mental flexibility. Many times what happens is our responses have become a habit. And so what happens is we are unable to transition between multiple concepts very smoothly or very effectively. Okay, we call that in a state of cognitive rigidity. Okay, instead of cognitive rigidity, you have to be in a cognitive flexibility. Okay, and what are the exercises you can think about? Well, the thing that comes to my mind immediately is, let's say you're a computer software person. Okay, can you, now that you have studied that software thing, you're doing your work and all that, your brain is used to that. Can you now switch to another profession? Not another profession, but can you learn something new? Okay, so let's say you're interested in, let's say, music, or let's say you're interested in learning an instrument. Now, this doesn't apply to only software engineers. It applies to all of us. If we are stuck to one profession, can we start taking interest in something else where you have to challenge your brain? Okay. So for example, now, learning a new instrument, learning a new vocabulary, learning a new language, learning something, like I know, in this audience, we have Radhika, we have Padma, we have Deepi. These people are all experts in addition to their professions, they are experts in other skill sets. I know these three that I've mentioned, they are experts in sewing or knitting. And sewing and knitting requires your brain. It requires you to measurements, analyze, making sure that you make the right stitches, making sure that you make the right cuts. Okay, that requires your brain to work. Okay, so that's different from what you've been doing in the morning, let's say in front of the computer. So something that is extraordinary, which requires you to challenge your brain. Those are the tasks that will help your brain to become more flexible. Okay, the other thing that I can think about in flexibility is, I'm a right-handed person. So I've been using my right hand for all my tasks since the time I was born. Now I'm trying to use my left hand in terms of when I'm eating my food, or when I'm doing something else, when I'm trying to open the door, or when I'm trying to switch on the light switch. Now I'm actually being challenged with using my left hand, the computer mouse. Try doing that. It requires a little bit of flexibility, okay, in order to become more adapt to that. So these are things that you can do to challenge your brain. Okay, so those are the 4 things that you can start adopting into your own day-to-day life. Because remember one thing, good eating is nice, physical exercise is good, but these two have to be complemented by brain exercises, and you have to build in that aspect of mental exercise as well in order to achieve good immunity. So the take-home message is neuroplasticity is the key to your brain's resilience and strength. Okay, mental training exercises is necessary because it allows the brain to remodel itself, to sculpt itself. Okay, and it allows you to become more sharp, more confident, more focused. It allows you to build immunity at all three levels: body, mind, and emotions. Okay, so now here's one of the greatest tips that I can give you. Remember the first three sessions, when we talked about the first three sessions, I said eating, and then I said a 12-hour fast. And then I built upon that and I said a 12-hour fast plus half an hour physical exercise. Okay, before you break your fast. Very good for immunity. Now I'm going to add one more tip. So have your dinner, okay, and if you're perfectly all right in your health, you don't have any health issues, then do a 12-hour fast. Okay, and the next day morning, do a 30 minutes physical exercise. Before you do a physical exercise, do a 30-minute mental exercise. You can either start learning a new language, or you can start learning some vocabulary, or you can sing, or you can play an instrument for 30 minutes, because that requires you to challenge your brain. Okay. And then after that, do a 30-minute physical exercise. So 12 hours plus 1 hour of exercise, 1 hour that constitutes mental and physical exercise. And then if you break your fast, I'm telling you, my friends, you are really going to build your immunity to a higher level. Okay. And that will be better, because then you can say that, your immunity is natural. You don't need drugs. You don't need pills. All right. So once again, make sure that you incorporate mental exercise as part of your normal routines. Okay. And you don't have to stretch far to think about mental exercise. As I give you 4 different aspects: attention, memory, flexibility, visual, spatial. Okay. Think about some exercise that you can incorporate within these aspects, and try to see if you can memorize those things. Try to see if you can build those memories, and try to see if you can recall them later. All right. So with that, I'll stop here and I will take your questions.
Hello, Ram. This is Tom.
Hi.
Out of curiosity,
Okay.
and thank you so much for leading me through the fasting. That was not easy, but your support made a very big difference. So thank you so much, and namaste.
Very
So
good.
my question has to do around the flexibility.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is the flexibility, can that also be related to when doing work? When a colleague stops by and there's an interruption, I find that as I've gotten older, it's harder for me to go back and remember where I was. So is there an exercise that would help me? And is this flexibility related to that as well? Thank you very much.
Yeah. So Tom, when somebody gets distracted, okay, and then after getting distracted, when they want to go back, you notice that, and it's just not with you, Tom. This is a very common aspect. Most of us actually, we tend to forget as to where we stopped. Okay, and then we have to think about it for a minute. So the way you can, now that's just not flexibility, it's also attention, it's also memory. All of them are involved in this. Okay, so the way you can build your exercise around this is, one common thing that I normally do is, in the night before you go to bed. Okay, just as when you're seated on the bed, before you lie down to sleep, see if you can recall all aspects of what you did throughout the day, and try to recall not just the broader aspects, but even the minute aspects of all the tasks. Okay, so and then try to see if you can, and if you forget something, you can always keep a paper by hand, and then see if you can do that. You can each time you do a task, you can write it down, and then in the end, in the night before you go to bed, before you see the paper, try to recall. And if you can't recall, see the paper and see if you can, how much of it you were able to recall. And then that's one thing. That is, so trying to recall, or attention span, or building your brain for the activities that you performed in the morning or throughout the day. Okay. Next day morning, when you get up, okay, the minute we get up, most of us have a habit of going to our phone. Instead of going to our phone, do one thing. For the first 15 minutes, instead of getting up out of the bed, while lying on the bed, see if you can recall everything that happened the past couple of days, or even if not past couple of days, at least the past 12 hours before you slept. Okay. And then try to formulate what exactly you're going to be doing in the morning. Okay. what is it you want to do, what is it you want to achieve. So so you're talking to the brain, okay, you're exercising your brain, and those things actually help in restructuring your brain, okay. And that actually, because what happens is all this require attention and your memory. So the minute you're paying attention, the minute you're paying, and then you're memorizing those things, what happens is you're building more neuronal connections, and that will then help you in order to get back to your tasks when you get distracted.
Thank you so
Ram,
much.
Sure.
Ram, going back to what you were saying, through our today's session, I just want to acknowledge and share, my mother-in-law, she turned 85 on 31st December. She practices many of the things that you have said, and she is 85, and, she makes sure that she, practices her breathing, her pranayama, and she's just for mental agility, she does some sudoku, and she watches the news avidly. And some of the stuff, when we talk to her, she is very well informed of what is happening in America than probably we know what is happening in India. So she's, it is just important, like what you said, it is very important for us to, I learn a lot from that, from the way she has conducted herself and her mental agility at, she's so much older than me, but I wish I had that kind of a, I would have that kind of a thing when I reach that age.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so important. Yes.
Yeah, and you make a good point, Radhika, because if you go back, and it's just not, even though I talk about yoga philosophy because I'm because I teach yoga philosophy and the yoga asanas, but if you go back to any civilization, okay, everyone emphasized in the morning when you wake up, they didn't say start eating or take your coffee or step onto your car and then go out there and start working. No, they said, they actually said that in the morning when you wake up, make sure that you engage in some kind of a physical exercise. And they also said read scriptures in the morning. The reason why you're reading scriptures is because it's not just about reading, but you're trying to analyze, you're trying to logically analyze the whole thing, you're trying to memorize that. So what's happening is the combination of physical exercise and the scriptural reading that you do, it actually helps the brain as well. And there's one more point here. So let's say now, there are so many situations where you can actually start practicing mindful exercises. One of the things, let's say you're in a traffic jam, okay? And instead of cursing the person ahead of you or the left of you or the right of you, or instead of cursing the traffic signals, or instead of cursing yourself for getting up late and getting involved in the traffic jam, try to use your mind, okay? Look to the car in front of you, look to the color, look to the model, look to the license plate, to the left of you, to the right of you, and then see, once you start moving, can you recall them again? Okay, so there are so many opportunities for us in where you can exercise your brain. You don't have to sit around. Just as you're involved in any kind of work, within that workship itself, can you get become a little more logical and use the analytical part of your brain and start working towards that, so that instead of just doing it like a automatic mode, you're actually being more attentive, you're being more conscious, you're being more focused, and all this will help. And once again, let me emphasize, immunity doesn't come with just doing physical exercise or eating good food. You have to have a good brain, working brain, or a resilient brain.
And you have already, these are a couple of the questions that came from last session. And so you've already covered it, I think, but would like to ask this question. What exactly happens to the body, mind, and emotions when you combine a 12-hour fast with physical exercise before having your breakfast?
Oh, okay. So let's say you have, so it's Sunday here, and Monday morning the trash fellow comes to collect the trash in our neighborhood. Okay, I'm sure it's different days for you guys. Okay, so what happens if the trash collector doesn't come in? The trash accumulates. What happens if the trash accumulates for periods of days and weeks and months? It starts stinking, and then it starts, it becomes like a poor hygiene, right? It becomes dangerous. In the same way, in our brain as well, and in our body, in our brain and our body, there is a lot of debris that accumulates. Okay, and our system has got a capacity to remove the debris. But what happens is, as we age, okay, those systems become a little loose, so to say. Okay, they are not functioning to the optimal. And so one way to make sure that that debris or that stuff that accumulates in the body and the brain, the only way to remove that, okay, is doing those things that will help in facilitating the removal of this junk. Okay, and one of the things is a fasting thing. During fasting, what happens is the body, especially the brain, switches over from one metabolic aspect to another metabolic aspect. And when it switches over to that second metabolic aspect, it releases certain chemicals, and those chemicals have got numerous protective effects. They are involved in delaying the aging phenomenon. They are involved in building your immunity, and they are involved in removing the trash from your brain and from your body. So that's the reason what happens is when we do a fasting window of 12 to 14 to 40, 15 hours, some of them, they do it for 16 hours or so. We don't have to go to that stretch. Okay, but we can do a 12 hour. A 12 hour is a gentle fast. And if you do it every day, it's a perfect way of freeing up the energy. Okay, you don't want the energy to be involved in removing the trash all through. Okay, you want to free up that energy so you can use that energy for other things as well, for other activities. So the fasting allows you to free up that energy system and to make you more resistant to defense mechanisms, to other conditions like cancer and infection and degenerative conditions. So that's the reason why we say, and then, it's interesting because the mechanism that involves the fasting, all those neurochemicals that get released, those same mechanisms seems to be playing a similar role when you do physical exercise or when you do mental exercise. So it's as if all the three aspects loop together and signal the same molecular pathway. So that's the reason why we combine physical, and now that I've given you mental exercise, we combine physical, mental exercises along with fasting to reap those benefits.
The next this thing is, you had guided us through through the WhatsApp group for few of us practiced the mono diet. Did you want to go a little bit on to the mono diet before I ask my other questions related to the mono diet?
Sure. So we did this. So as a group practice, we did the mono diet, right? The mono diet required for us to take one source of carbohydrates, okay, which was rice, and then one source of protein, which was the mung bean, dal, and then one source of fat, which I said could be either olive oil or ghee or coconut oil. Okay, so why do we do that? The reason is, again, remember, our body and our brains, we continuously build up a lot of the trash. Okay, and that trash, actually, what happens, one of the things that happens immediately is it impinges on our digestive system. And when it impinges on our digestive system gets compromised. And how do we know that it's been compromised? Well, think about after you eat your food. Okay, first of all, when you're eating your food, are you eating because you want to eat or because you're actually feeling hungry? That's number one sign. The second thing, after you eat, do you feel bloated? Do you feel gassy? Do you feel lethargic? Do you feel that sleepy? Okay, all these are conditions where it tells you that your digestive system was not optimal. Okay, yes, you do feel it does digest the body, but it's not an optimal digestive system. And now in the present day age, we call it in terms of the microbiome. Okay, the environment around your gut. And so what happens is, one way to improve the microbiome or one way to improve the digestive fire is to think about this campfire analogy. The campfire works very good, okay, if the flame is very large. Okay, and then you can add your veggies, you can add your meat, and everything gets cooked very nicely. But what happens if the campfire or the grill, the fire is not very healthy? Okay, then what happens is the food doesn't get cooked properly. Okay, it leaves behind traces of the food that you cannot feel like eating. There's charring of the food as well. So whereas if it's a healthy fire, it burns away everything that you add to it. Okay, and what is the residue is just ash. So in the same way, in our body too, our digestive fire has to be optimal so that whatever you eat can get digested. And that is what signals your immunity. That is what signals your immune strength at the physical level and at the level of the brain as well. Okay, so by doing this detox diet, what you're doing is basically you're trying to improve your digestive fire. Okay, and when you improve your digestive fire, it can come in the way, it can show you in a number of ways. Number one, not during the time, but afterwards, you'll notice that some of you would have lost at least 1 or 2 pounds of weight. Okay, even though you didn't involve in a lot of exercise, just by changing your diet, you can cause a change in the weight. Okay, some of you may notice that you're thinking more clearly. Some of you may notice that you're more calmer. Some of you may notice that you're getting a better sleep. So all these are indications that your digestive fire has improved. Okay, and so that's the reason why every 3 months or every 4 months, excuse me, we engage in this detox diet. Now, there are a lot of other diets. There are, what we call the fresh juice diet. You can do the raw diets. All those, in my opinion, are a little harsher to the microbiome, the digestive environment. Whereas this, what I suggested, where you have your rice, mung bean, and ghee or olive oil, it's more gentle and it's also uplifting to the digestive system.
And it's also dairy free, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also, I mean, by doing this, what's happening is you're not incorporating a lot of other stuff, like chocolates and dairy and sweeteners and all those things. So what happens is now, because you're not, so just think about your grill. What happens if you add a lot of stuff at the same time? Your fire is going to come down. In the same way, in your body too, if you're going to add a lot of stuff like dairy and cheeses and milk and all that stuff, over time, it brings down the fire. So by doing the khichdi diet, what you're doing is you're improving the fire. So now you can safely bring in all the other things like ice creams and chocolates and cookies and all that stuff.
And how is this mono diet? Why would you say, and people are practicing everyday diets, like regular diets, intermittent fasting, and I think you have answered the question by keeping it simple. But how is the khichdi mono diet different from normal everyday diet? Why is it recommended? So I think you already answered the question by saying keeping it simple and keeping it, just the basic ingredients.
Right. It's easy on the diet. Yeah, it's easy on the digestive system. And a normal diet is where you have, juices, you will have fruits, you will have sweeteners, you will have chocolates, you will have desserts, all those things. So all those things on a day-to-day basis is okay. But once in a while, you need to come back to the mono diet so that you can improve your digestive fire. And once you improve on it, what happens is you can engage yourself in other diets that will not leave you energetically. It won't drain you out.
So once a quarter or something like that, you would recommend going into this?
Yeah, I would suggest at least twice in a year, if not more. You don't want to do it too many times because it can really be draining. So twice in a year. I like to do it 3 times in a year. So I keep a gap of 4 months. You can do it twice in a year. So, every 6 months.
What do you recommend, a daily fast for minimum 12 hours or eating alternate days, 4 days food, 3 days abstain from food totally? Is that something you would recommend?
No, I would not recommend. I mean, I know that in the Bay Area, we do have those IT people, the CEOs of Twitter and other companies that come in one day, they meet on a Wednesday in San Francisco, and then they binge eat, and then the rest of the 6 days they fast completely. They don't eat any food at all. I wouldn't suggest that. I mean, it may be working for them, but I wouldn't suggest that. To me, that's a very harsh way of stimulating your body and brain. You don't want to do that. It may be good for a certain period, but over time, it's not very good. That's why I suggested a gentle fast of 12 hours, 12 to 13 hours. If you do it every day, it's very good for the body and the brain. So my suggestion is don't involve yourself in 3-day fast or a 4-day fast. Just do a gentle fast every day, because that's more approachable and that's more energetically, it's much more better for the body and the brain.
And you also mentioned there was this thing about selfless service. How does that fit into that paradigm?
So next month, the month of February, for the GLP session, I'm going to talk about selfless service. But so remember, there are 9 steps to build immunity and to become a very perfect individual. We talked about diet, physical exercise, mental exercises. Okay. And next month we'll talk about selfless service. So
Okay.
selfless service will build on this. Selfless
Okay.
service combined with all the other four aspects is the way to go for when it comes to immunity at all three levels of body, mind, and emotions. Uh, I don't want to delve into that too much because it's
Yes.
going to be it's going to be the subject for next session.
Okay.
But yes, if you are engaging in selfless service, okay, where without any expectations, it's a great way to build immunity along with the other things that we have suggested.
And one question we have from Raji in the chat window is it okay to take decaffeinated coffee when following the mono diet?
Yes and no, because so for initially what happens is we tend to because it's so hard for us to remove those habits that we have cultivated for a very long time. We don't want to stop them cold turkey. That's why I suggested phasing into the diet, and I
Phasing
suggested
in.
phasing out. Okay, you never want to do cold turkey. You never want to start cold turkey and never want to leave it cold turkey, because that's going to be harsh on the body and the brain. But at the same time, one way to phasing in is to make sure that you remove some of the things that you've been got addicted to, okay, which you've been using it for a very long time, things like coffee and chocolates. So that's why you can start using substitutes, but the actual window where you are doing the rigorous strict mono diet, I would suggest not doing any decaffeinated drinks or anything. Just use, if you have to use any drinks, I would suggest herbal drinks like like tulsi tea or ashwagandha tea or turmeric tea. Those are much more better compared to a caffeine based or decaffeinated based, because decaffeinated again is a processed thing, okay, and you don't want to use any processed things when you're doing this diet.
Mhm. Okay. So now I have the pleasure to opening it up to all of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to either put it in the chat window or ask Ram directly. Any questions?
Hi, Ram. This is Srilata Kurli.
Hi.
Uh, so one of my friends, she recommended to join this group, and really it is going to helpful for the people who are really nearly close to 50 years old. This is especially the body, mind, and emotional immunity. These are going to help us to be more active, agile around this age. And not only for us, even for the younger generations like high school students,
True.
it is going to be helpful. So
Absolutely.
so if we inculcate this kind of activities at very young age, it is going to helpful for them. So do you provide some internship or some classes for high school students?
I have not started any classes for the high school students. What I've done is, I mean, GLP sessions that is conducted by the North Bay Hindu Center is really a good platform. You are welcome to bring your kids as well. What I've done is, because some of the kids ask me similar questions on YouTube, I have good living practices, small segments of the videos where anybody can go and use that. And basically, these are same thing that we are discussing here. I provided some tips, and each one is like 5 to 6 minutes long, and it provides one tip that you can inculcate: good eating tips, good physical practices, good mental practices, and so on. And yes, even though we are adults in this forum, I would encourage students, I mean high school students, I would encourage juveniles, I would encourage college students, anybody, because none of these practices, so to say, is meant only for adults. It's meant for everybody. When you talk about mental exercise, very good for the kids. When you talk about physical exercise, very good for the kids. When you talk about mindful eating, children have to necessarily adopt those mindful eating practices because they get distracted very easily. And so I would encourage parents out there to to join with your kids as well. And if at all there's another avenue where children are there, I can definitely, I'm open to providing these kind of tips to children as well. But right now we don't have that forum.
So if my son, if he's interested to do some research and related to this area, is there any way he can contact and get some help?
Absolutely. You can always contact me. I mean, or you can contact the NBHC site and they'll provide you my contact address. Or on WhatsApp, my number is there, my contact is there. You can always contact me, not an issue.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and if there is sufficient interest and with the rounds availability, we can also try and see if we can do, a session for the
For
youth.
the kids. Yeah.
That is, if we have a minimum of about 10 kids or something who are interested in attending such sessions on a regular basis, we are definitely open at NBHC to do that.
I'll be
And
delighted to do that, because
yes,
even though I can think of myself as having crossed that area where I could have done
yes,
it much earlier, but I don't want the children to suffer. I want the children to be, to be
yes.
improving their immunity. So yes, I'm
Yeah.
open to doing that.
Our
Yeah.
focus, our focus here mainly is to, bring the community together, and use this platform, because this is something that anyone from 5 to 100, can benefit from it. So definitely it is something we would like to promote.
Yes.
So
Yeah, it is always better to inculcate these kind of habits at
yes,
very young age, right? Rather than we
yes,
realize the value at around 50 years old.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, let's not give up, because just because we are 50 doesn't mean that we
Yeah,
have
no, no, no.
lost.
We are not. We don't
Yeah,
have choice. We
we
have to
still
follow
we,
now.
we can still do it. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Sitaraman is, I don't know if he's in this group right now, but Sitaraman, one of the brain exercises he does is he makes sure every week to play bridge. Bridge is a beautiful game which requires your mind, it requires your analytical skills, and it's very good for the brain as well. I mean, things like Sudoku, things like
yes,
chess, all these are
yes,
very good. And so at this age for us, imagine now if we have to learn a new language, even though we may find that it's difficult because we have to memorize, but now is a time where we can start learning a new language or a new
right.
skill set. Any new skill sets you can learn, it's very good.
In fact, Sitaraman has started guitar classes in August. So,
There you go.
when you were talking about learning a new instrument, I was just thinking about that, and it gives him great pleasure. He has a time now after his work life is over. So it is really nice.
Very
So,
good. Yeah.
so any other questions?
Yeah, hello all. This is Shiva Shankari, and thank you very much for this session again. And Happy New Year to one and all. My question is, I was taking some yoga classes, and also was going to swimming and the gym together, like all three together, right? Like, and then the yoga person was telling there is no need to go to the gym, because yoga, whatever you are doing, is really good for you, but then the gym session will really do the opposite of the yoga, so it's going to be like nullifying something like that. So I'm having that question. The follow-up question is like, do we have any kind of particular exercises for the mind, doing physically, meaning like, I know what you said, like we have to focus on memorizing a spatial, whatever you listed, all those things, along with the some learning some language or any kind of instrument, any of all those things. Along with that, is there any kind of physical exercise which benefits the mental improvement, like capacity, meaning like we have some asanas where we stand upside down, where the blood flows to the, like to the brain fully. So that's what my question is. Basically, I have two questions. One,
Yeah.
is yoga alone is enough, or is yoga and gym okay? And along with that, is there any physical exercise for the brain capacity to improve?
Okay, so let me take the first question first with regard to yoga. So the question is, if you're doing yoga, do we have to do other exercise as well? It's up to you. I mean, yoga by itself does not tell you that because you're doing yoga asanas that you have to restrict yourself to just yoga asanas. Okay, and it's not correct to say that just because you're doing yoga asanas, you don't have to or you don't need to. Okay, you can always do it. It's not a problem. Yes, yoga by itself is a beautiful stretching exercise, but the thing is, for a certain age, how many of us can really do all those complicated asanas? Okay, and yet at the same time, we want to make sure that those areas of the body are still nimble and they are still flexible and they are still, sort of not rusted. Okay, so my suggestion is, if you're doing yoga asanas, please do it. And if you have the capacity and if you have the time and if you have the inclination to do other gym activities like swimming and all that, please do that. Because I like to recommend swimming mainly because when you do swimming, you're engaging in all aspects of your body, okay, including the spine. And there are some aspects of the body which for certain exercises, we cannot do it with yoga because we just cannot, make those nimble postures. Swimming is a good exercise. Swimming also helps to improve your lung capacity, okay, because you have to breathe, okay, and so that's a very good exercise. Along with swimming, I mean, if you have the time, you can do tennis, you can do other exercise as well. So there's absolutely no restriction, okay. On the other hand, for those people who think that they are doing a lot of physical exercise, if you think that you're nimble enough, remember one thing, there are areas of the body, like if you constantly lift weights, you're only strengthening your biceps and shoulder blades, okay, but you're not strengthening your hips. So it's the other way around. If you're doing physical exercise, make sure that you are engaging yourself in some yoga stretches, because then it becomes a complete exercise for the body, okay. That's one thing. Now, for the second part of the question, are there physical exercises that stimulate the brain as well? Yes. And the good example is what you yourself mentioned. So what happens is, as we age, okay, uh, the blood flow to the brain actually dwindles. Okay, it doesn't stop, but it slows down. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we have issues with memory. We have issues with recalling memory or consolidating our memory or laying down the memories, because the blood flow, what we call the cerebral blood flow, is actually lower. Okay, and unfortunately, there are no pills to improve the blood flow. So what can we do physically in order to improve the blood flow? Okay, one thing is fasting. Fasting actually helps in improving the blood flow to the brain. So the 12-hour fast actually improves the cerebral blood flow. The second thing is engaging in all those exercises where your brain is below the heart. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, it's below the heart. So your heart is above the brain. Okay. And what exercise can we think about that? Things like inversions. Okay. Now, you may say that how do that actually help with the blood flow? Because it's not, even though a lot of teachers, yoga teachers will tell you that by gravity is not the reason. Okay. Because if gravity was the reason for blood flow, then all the blood should have got accumulated in the feet. Okay. But that's not what happens. So what happens is, when you actually invert where the brain is beneath the heart, what happens is you are strengthening the muscles and the veins and the arteries, okay, the carotid artery, which lines around your neck. The carotid artery is the one that supplies the blood from the heart to the brain. You are strengthening the valves, okay, and the capillaries that strengthen this entire arteries. So by strengthening, what happens is you are improving the blood flow. The capillaries become more malleable to the blood flow. So that's how you can increase the blood flow. So I'm glad you brought that up, Shankari. So yes, so inversions is a very good practice. Now, some of you may not be able to do full inversions. You don't have to necessarily completely invert yourself, but you can actually, while you're sitting on a chair. So let's say you're in front of your computer and you're busy clanking on your keyboard. Okay. Now, remember that sit to stand ratio I talked about last month. Okay. So the time when you're stretching, see if you can sit in the chair and and fold forward with your head to the floor. Okay, you may not touch the floor, but at least fold forward. That in itself is a very good exercise, where even though the brain is parallel to the heart, you are actually strengthening the carotid artery and you're allowing the blood to flow. So, you can do mild inversions. Mild inversions is where it's half inversions. All these are very good. So folding forward while standing or folding forward while sitting is a great way to improve the blood flow.
Okay, thank you. Maybe once Corona quarantine is all done, we can all go for bungee jump on the lighter note.
Harsh way, but yes, you can definitely do that.
Complete inversion.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Hi, Ram. Deepa here.
Hi, Deepa.
Hi. So, quick question on the detox you said. So, how after 3-4 months, how long am I doing that? Like for how many days?
So usually what happens is we encourage people to phase in for 3 days, okay, and then phase out for 3 days. So 6 days are gone there, okay. And then if you can actually do for another 3 days or 4 days, so it's a 10-day. I like to keep it as a 10-day program because easy to remember 10 days. Okay, so 3 days phasing in, 4 days actual detox diet, and then 3 days phasing out. Now, for people who have a hard time doing the actual 4-day time, I know Tom actually mentioned about, not very enthusiastic about it. But my suggestion is, if you can remember the phase when you're phasing in, the third day of the phase in, is actually very close to your detox diet. Okay, because except for one small little thing that you're doing in the morning, the rest of the time you're doing the khichdi fast. So you can actually prolong the phase, the third day of the phase in. Okay, you can do it for 3 more days or 4 more days and actually do the detox diet for just 1 day. So play around, okay, and but stick around 10 days. You don't want to do it for more than 10 days.
Okay, so that phasing in means slowly going into the khichdi diet, and then
Right.
phasing out is slowly coming out of it, right? And the khichdi diet for 4 days. Okay,
That's correct.
all right, got it. Okay. Thank you.
And when you're doing the detox diet, you can always do if you have the strength, you can combine it with physical exercise. If you have the strength, combine with mental exercise. So imagine now the amount of benefits you're giving to your body and brain just by doing a detox diet along with a short stretch of physical exercise and mental exercise. A great way to improve your immunity.
Okay,
And,
but that's
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's not a too bad a diet, because you're saying I can have rice, I can have dal, and I can have
yeah, but the thing is, our mind is so tuned to eating the chocolates
Right.
and the desserts and the the sweets and all that.
Yes.
The first day we are enthusiastic when we are actually on the detox diet. The first day is very enthusiastic. The second day, I mean, I'm a preacher, but I myself, when I see Padma doing it, and I'm very happy that she's doing it, but when I myself, the second or third day, my brain starts acting weird. It's like eating the same stuff. You really have to have the attention. You really have to have the determination. But yeah, if you can do it, it's really very beneficial.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is my first time that I've joined in, but I was just wondering, as far as ingredients are concerned, like I go to these Indian stores and I like look at the moong dal and the rice and whatever, and especially turmeric, whatever. They've been there for so long, and it just doesn't seem like it's the most natural ingredients. Where do you recommend actually going and getting things that are sort of not outdated, easy to access for us in Marin or San Francisco area?
Right.
Just curious if you've thought about that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that's a very good question. I agree totally with you about the Indian grocery stores keeping their, stuff for a very long time and not recirculating them. The best thing is, if you don't mind spending a little bit of an extra money, you can go to Whole Foods. Whole Foods actually has their section is really beautiful, organic, and then they make sure that it recirculates very fast. So they recycle it on a constant basis. In addition to Whole Foods, I don't know about other places, but in our area here, we have the Natural Food Store. The Natural Food Store is very similar to Whole Foods, except that they don't have groceries, but they keep everything organic. The Natural Food Store is a perfect place where they carry a lot of organic rices, grains, dals. They even have herbs. They have everything. I mean, that's a, San Francisco has a Natural Food Store. I forgot the name. I think it's
yeah, I know.
Marin, it's a Good Earth, I think. Good Earth also has
Good Earth
it,
is Good Earth. You have in Marin, you have Good Earth, and then in San Francisco on 19th Avenue, you have at the end of 19th Avenue, there is, I forgot the name of the store, but it's a very good natural food store. So look for the natural food stores. They carry stuff that is really, I would suggest, I have confidence in that. And that's where I buy my stuff.
Oh, that's great. And the natural stores also have desi ghee, right? The kind that you would probably
Yes, absolutely.
That's good.
You want to be very careful about ghee as well, because there are a lot of ghees out there. Make sure that, especially one way to notice the quality of ghee is if it's ghee has a tendency to solidify in the winters, but when it solidifies, you want to make sure that it's solidified from top to bottom. Okay, you don't want to see a ghee that is solidified at the top or at the bottom, but then the rest is all liquid. You don't want to see those two phases. Okay, if you are seeing two different phases, it means it's not the perfect ghee. Okay, so make sure that your ghee is perfectly solidified in winter. That's, I would suggest, is a much better ghee.
Yes. Yeah. Anything more? Okay.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ram, for a wonderful session. For those of you who have joined today or joined the WhatsApp group, All these sessions that were covered are on our YouTube, the NBHC YouTube page. So you can go back, and all are recorded and uploaded there. So, and also you can go to that through our website. And we will, for those of you who have joined and want to know more about the mono diet and join through the WhatsApp group, that's the best way for us right now for you to get in touch with us and get updated. It will also be updated in our website, and so should you do that, and we will update with the rules of the mono diet that Ram has actually shared with us and guided us through, so that you're benefiting from that. And here we will also when like he recommends every 4 months, we will try and give you an advance notice so that all of us can practice that mono diet together, support each other, and do it. And I would like to actually thank Ram for making this platform for us to share this kind of information. And NBHC tries very hard to bring these kind of informative sessions to all of you, as well as with the temple project and with all the other initiatives that we have with Gita study group and other volunteer activities or events and everything. So if you please stay tuned on our Facebook page as well as our website. And please open up your hearts. Our goal for year end was $10,000. And we hope that we can still, you have time, I believe, till 15th January to make a contribution. We are encouraging people to sign up as recurring donors, the NPR model, so that, $1 a day will help us. And we are very seriously looking for a place in Petaluma, and so that it is centrally located, so that we can have a physical platform also for you to visit us while we enjoy these virtual virtual events to connect everybody. So thank you, Ram, and look forward to another beautiful session in February.
Yes.
Every first Sunday of the month. Join us and encourage other people also to join our WhatsApp group. You're welcome to send the link. And with no further ado, thank you so much. Namaste.